Good morning, guys, and we're going to be talking about the cell membrane today. Why is the cell membrane so important? Well, the cell membrane is important because it acts as a barrier for our cells that allow for certain substances in and out of the cell in order to maintain homeostasis. So, homeostasis is that characteristic of life that ensures that our internal conditions are balanced. And so, it's important to be able to balance what our cells need. Not only that, but what our cells don't need as well. So, in terms of regulating substances, this is called selective permeability. And so our cell membrane allows us to be able to be selectively permeable. Now, in terms of this selective permeability, you can think of it like a dam where we're able to release water if there's too much water, or you can think of it like a bouncer where that bouncer prevents things from coming in. Now, what does the cell membrane look like? Well, the cell membrane looks like a phospholipid bilayer. So if we focus on that word bilayer, that means that there are two layers of that phospholipid molecule. So a phospholipid is a molecule that's made up of polar phosphate head and a fatty acid tail. It is that jellyfish-like looking substance. So in terms of the middle of this bilayer, this middle of the bilayer is going to be considered nonpolar because of the fatty acid tails, and the outside of the bilayers are going to be considered polar because of the polar phosphate heads. Why that's important is because this prevents water-soluble substances from being able to move across the membrane. And so it's going to need a little bit of help. The water-soluble substances are going to need a little bit of help whenever it comes to moving across that cell membrane. Now, you also see all these different molecules that are sitting on top and also inside the cell membrane. All of these different substances are going to be used in order to make sure that we can maintain that homeostasis. Now, what are some substances that our cell membrane might regulate? Well, it's going to regulate all the different types of organic molecules that we've talked about. So amino acids, fatty acids, and sugars. And so if you remember, amino acids are going to be used in order to make proteins, and proteins are used to make structure. Fatty acids have all different varieties of functions, but can also be used as a source of energy. They can be used in terms of waterproofing. And so it becomes very, very important to make sure that we're able to make those structures. And then sugars, of course, are going to be for that stored energy, that quick energy, and even structure in terms of plants and animals. So in terms of ions, we're going to need to make sure that we regulate our salt content. Waste products, we need to be able to get rid of things like CO2. We don't want our CO2 to build up in our cells. And then products like water and oxygen, we constantly need to be hydrated. We constantly need oxygen. So we need to make sure that those are able to go in and out of our cell membrane. What's really, really cool about this picture over here is that you can see the phospholipid bilayer that goes all the way around the cell. So literally that bilayer, that phospholipid bilayer covers every single one of our cells, which is really, really cool and really weird whenever you think about it. Now, in terms of the cell membrane and how it works. So the fluid mosaic model explains how that cell membrane is a dynamic system. In other words, that means that it's always fluctuating. It's designed to maintain that balance, that homeostasis, the characteristic of life of making sure our internal conditions are balanced. So in terms of the fluid refers to the cell membrane constantly moving and constantly changing. So it's like a boat on the ocean. And so that boat on the ocean is always rocking on that ocean, and it ensures that that boat is maintaining that balance, that buoyancy, so it doesn't sink. Now, in terms of the mosaic, so the mosaic refers to those different molecules that we just talked about that are embedded in and on the cell membrane. So things like membrane proteins, glycoproteins, cholesterol, all of those things are going to be important in making sure that we're able to maintain that balance.